I feel like Black Rose Wars is going to be a bit of an ongoing saga for me, and I'm still not sure who's going to win. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is games leaving the collection for the month of March. We have a whole bunch of games here, not as many as the last few months. Things have slowed down a bit. I'm playing a lot of games. Some of them are sticking around, though. I'm going to have to make some hard choices. I always have to make some hard choices. Nothing's really changed. This is not news in any way, shape, or form. There are good games. There are great games. There are games that I don't care at all that are leaving the collection. And then there are games that make me very, very sad. And no, Black Rose Wars is technically not leaving, but also it's leaving. We'll get into it. And so let's start with the fact that a few months ago, I did a video talking about games that if I don't play them, they are leaving the collection. I've had mixed luck in terms of actually having that incentivize me to play those games. And in some cases, I've realized that some games I'm just not going to prioritize, and Snowdonia is sadly going to be one of those games. There were two games that had to leave in the games leaving the collection in March. I'll link that video down below. But Black Rose Wars and Snowdonia are the two games that I said if they don't get played by March, they're leaving. And so they're kind of leaving. Snowdonia is one that I actually sat down and read the rulebook, and it's a good game, supposedly. I've heard good things about it. This is the master set. You don't actually see the Snowdonia part over there. Snowdonia over here, it's the master set. It's well sought after, and I have no interest in playing it. None. None whatsoever. I was interested once upon a time. That's why I have this game, but I read the rules, and it didn't make me more ready to play it. It made me less ready to play it. It just looks like a basic worker placement game that doesn't even give you enough workers per round to be interesting. Then you have your locomotives, and you have your this, and you have that, you have weather, da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know what this game is doing that's different or interesting. Now keep in mind, it's not a review. That in no way, shape, or form is a review because I haven't played this game. This is just one of those games where my initial interest and the reason I got it was, I guess, fleeting. Unfortunately, I always feel a little embarrassed when that happens because why did I get a game that I currently have no interest in playing? Most games in my collection that are unplayed, I have a tremendous interest in playing. This one, I don't know what happened. And so yeah, I read the rulebook. The rulebook did not make me more interested. The rulebook made me less interested. It might be an incredible and amazing game. And I hope, like any other game that's ever left my collection unplayed, I hope that I have the chance to play this one day. But I realize I am not prioritizing it over many other games that I want to play, and so Snowdonia is leaving my collection unplayed, and Black Rose Wars is seeing a bit of a similar thing, but with a different struggle behind it. Black Rose Wars I have played a bunch of times. I think it's fantastic. I think it's incredible. And my problem is that I made the mistake of playing and learning this game with somebody who doesn't even live here, which means I kind of am only in the mood of playing it when he's in town. This is going to be Devin, Devin from Quackalope. He has a channel called Devin Talks Tabletop. I'll link to that down below. And Black Rose Wars is a curse on my collection in a good way and a bad way. Because again, we've played this game. We've played Black Rose Wars. We played Black Rose Wars Rebirth. And whenever he comes into town, we're like, are we going to play Black Rose Wars or something else instead? And so sometimes other things get chosen. More times other things get chosen. And I could teach it again to someone else. I could. I just don't really want to, because this isn't the easiest teach, and then I have the expansion and exclusives and all those extras, and so Black Rose Wars is one that I put on that video of games that have to be played or will leave my collection. It hasn't been played. Although I do have a bit of a not catch-22, I do have a bit of a get-out-of-a-jail-free card here, because Black Rose Wars Rebirth, which if you watch my What I Backed videos, you'll know I didn't back, they're actually sending me a copy of the game. And so it actually makes it a little easier to get rid of this one because they are going to be sending me Black Rose Wars Rebirth, which I'm kind of excited about because I thought Black Rose Wars Rebirth was better than Black Rose Wars, slightly cleaned up, with the caveat that if you already own Black Rose Wars, I didn't think you needed to get Rebirth. I didn't think it was drastically different, but I slightly preferred the game aspects to it, to this one over here. And so I'm interested in Black Rose Wars Rebirth, and I'm happy to try again when that one comes in. But this is what I mean when I say that I don't know who's going to win this fight. I simultaneously really like this game and do not want to see it leave, while recognizing that sometimes in life hard choices have to be made because of the fact that you're not always going to play everything you like. You're going to play the things that you're going to play, and the things you don't actually play should be leaving your collection. Assuming you have games to play and not to collect. If you have games to collect, do what you want. Make yourself happy. It's all good. And so yeah, Black Rose Wars will technically not leaving the collection, kind of on a, I mean it is leaving the collection, but it's on a bit of a hiatus as I get Black Rose Wars Rebirth instead and hope that one sticks better. Part of the problem is all the stuff and the content and the mixing it together. If you have the Seder box, then you have to like mix things together in a way that's like a nightmare. It's like a homework assignment to integrate everything correctly. So I've just been intimidated by this one, and that's a problem, by the way. This is a real problem that sometimes on Kickstarter you get too many things, and that actually makes it harder to table what you got instead of easier. So More is not always better, says the guy who backs way too many things all in and knows that it's a problem. But anyways, those are the two games. I'm going to take Black Ops Wars Rebirth off the table because it's sort of leaving, but also not. So let's go ahead and move that out of the camera. But we still have plenty of other stuff to go over because this is not merely about two games. In fact, there's timestamps down below in case you want to see exactly what it is and is not about. Starting off with some easy stuff such as Poetry for Neanderthals. Poetry for Neanderthals is a fun game. That's all I have. That's all I have for you. This one, Exploding Kittens, it's a fun game. It's not bad. It's all about trying to get players to say the things, but saying it in one-word syllables. So you have to explain, what is, I don't know, what concept should we use? We have to say, let's find a word here. We have campfire. Campfire, okay? So how can you explain what a campfire is using singular words? Probably would have been made more sense if I didn't actually tell you. Let's try to pick a different thing. I'm going to pick got it. Okay, I found it. I have a word that I'm trying to get you to say using one-word syllables, okay? So, sit, place, you, work, sit, place, sit, you, work, you sit, place, move, turn, swivel I think is 2 syllables, so I can't use swivel, but now you know. But hopefully you got that I was going for chair. Chair is the word I was going for. Although sit, place, you, work, sit, place, you, eat, sit, place, you, play. Could have done any of those things. That would have been helpful. But the goal is to get people to guess words that are using single syllable answers. It's fun. It's amusing. It's a good party game. And it's a party game that we don't pull out and play. I've kept it as long as I had because my daughter, Ricky, continued to insist that we would play it and wanted me to keep it. But we haven't played it. And so it's time for this one to go. It's time for Poetry for Neanderthals to move on, to go into somebody else's collection, to be part of their gaming repertoire or whatnot. I think it's fun. I think it's good. Party games in our house just don't get played that often. And when they do, it's usually something like Dixit or something a little bit more gamer adjacent that kind of bridges the gaps. Codenames, Dixit, So Clover, all of those things. In the case of Poetry for Neanderthals, it is not getting played. From there, we have another easy one. I'll try to go through these from easier to harder. We have Gladius. Gladius, which I just reviewed on the channel in a little roundup review, I think, unless that's going up next week, in which case, sorry. Gladius. Gladius is going to be coming from Deepwater Games, I believe. Deepwater Games and Cat Quartet Games, both those companies. And Gladius is a little game of, well, gladiators. You're playing gladiators in 2 different arenas. You're going to have arenas, you're going to have gladiators, you're going to have specific metrics you're going for, from their fighting, their luck, the crowd, whatever it is, their charisma, whatever you want to call it. But they have a bunch of gladiators and a bunch of metrics, and you're playing cards down to while betting on those gladiators. So it's basically a betting game where you want to kind of bet with other players so that you're not fighting an uphill battle against everyone. So you're kind of semi-aligned with some people, semi-aligned with other people, while also making sure that you're enough of your own special snowflake that you actually win the game and aren't just tying everyone else for points. And so you're trying to do that in Gladius as you use your character's asymmetric decks and abilities to try to get what you want. It's okay. I never love games that involve group betting on different things. I always find it's a bit of a gamble, and it kind of feels a bit like a stock game in the sense that you have to work with others, but not really with others. But this one feels just less rewarding than many other stock games that have that mechanic. A Bear Raid from Board Game Table is going to be a fantastic game that has that aspect, and I think it's just a better implementation. Gladius felt random and okay, and just not a game that I'm particularly compelled to continue playing. It's not a bad game. It's just not a game that in any way, shape, or form impressed me. From there we have... Oh, this is an easy one. This is an easy one. Okay, we actually have 2 easy ones. Let's go with 2 easy ones. We have Cryptid. Cryptid Duel, or Cryptid Urban Legends. I just call it Cryptid Duel because it's the 2-player version of Cryptid, although it's not actually the 2-player version of Cryptid, which is part of the problem. Cryptid Urban Legends has nothing to do with Cryptid. Like, nothing. I mean, like, I can't even begin to tell you how little has to do with Cryptid. This is not Cryptid. This is Urban Legends, okay? Urban Legends, the 2-player game, is not a bad game. It's just a game that I don't particularly feel compelled to play because the abstract puzzle that it is providing for 2 players I find tedious and repetitive and not particularly rewarding. I don't have like these moments of, look at these cool moves I can do. I have these moments of, let me play a card, do the thing, have the pieces move back and forth, and ta-da, eventually someone wins, or we get to a stalemate point and we have to just count up the extra little tokens that you've earned throughout the course of the game. Yeah, I don't like this game. Not that much. It's not bad. It's just not bad. Same like Gladius. It's not a bad game. It's just a game that didn't impress me. It's a game that I am not compelled by, I am not interested in playing, and it doesn't reward me enough for the abstract puzzle it provides. It does provide an abstract puzzle, to be clear, but I find that, and it's always one of these delicate balances of, when is a game giving you the strategy you want? When is it giving you the level of strategy you want to engage with? Maybe I'm just not seeing the nuanced depth that this game provides. If I took one of my favorite abstract games, Tak, let's say, if I took Tak and you sat down and played Tak and said, well, it just feels like you're going back and forth, it doesn't really feel like you're making any meaningful progress and there's no real puzzle or strategy that you can really deduce from what you're doing, I would say you're not very good at Tak. Which is fine. You don't have to be good at that. Just you don't see the puzzle and the strategy of that game. Myself and my friends, we play it. We go back and forth. We love the experience it has. How do I know, personally, that when I sit there and say, hey, you know this abstract game, I don't like the puzzle it provides? How do I know if it is or isn't me versus the puzzle? And the answer is I don't. I don't know. So I'm just saying it's not for me. I'm not saying it's not for you. I am saying you should not expect Cryptid. This has nothing to do with Cryptid. This is Urban Legends from Osprey Games. A light little abstract game, it's a small little package, plays in a short time frame, gives you an abstract puzzle that I don't particularly find compelling enough, but you might. It's not Cryptid. It's not Cryptid. Anyways, moving on from there to the Ratcatcher, a game that I have not played. I mean, I have played, or I haven't played. I'm not entirely sure how you count it. I read the rulebook. I did a full video because of this game. I have a slight degree of ire, frustration towards the game, towards the... not towards the developer, not towards the designer, because it's a weird balance. You see, I see this happen as well when you sometimes have these rants from other channels. Okay, other channels, other board game channels will occasionally rant about a game, and I do that too to a small extent. But I always feel so bad when I do so because there's a person, there's a company behind this game, and I am incredibly personally frustrated by the experience or lack of an experience that I was able to get from Ratcatcher, a game that has a beautiful art, beautiful components. I think there's a fun solo puzzle game behind there, but it's not one that I was able to get to, and I'm frustrated by that. This is a level of frustration that you may have against other games that I love. There are many games that I've talked about over the years that have bad rulebooks that I've persevered through them. Rise of Moloch, Too Many Bones. I mean, there's all games in that thingy. A Wild Ascent. What else is there? I mean, there's a whole bunch of games out there that have not the best rulebooks, not the best access points, and they may have prevented you from getting to the fun game within. From all those games that I've ever played, the Ratcatcher has the worst rulebook I have ever read. I think I can say that confidently. That's not true. Maybe Mill 1049. That's a game that's been so long, so I don't know how bad the rulebook was. But when a rulebook is not just hard to understand, but literally is just absent of information, essential information that allows you to actually experience the game, that means you cannot engage with the experience. That's what I did with Ratcatcher. I read the rulebook, made no sense to me. I read the rulebook again, made no sense. I set up the game, started playing, looked up things that weren't in the rulebook, and I just kept playing, hoping I could kind of power through. And to a certain extent, you can. To a small extent, you can power through it, but it's not the kind of powering through it where it's like, well, this is like this. Do I make a house rule about how this interaction plays out? No, it's not like that. It's just literally, I don't know what this thing does or how it works. I can just guess or not. It's not like house ruling a situation. It's just an absence of specific information that you need to experience the game. Ratcatcher was frustrating because I think it might be a game I otherwise like. And so I feel bad. I feel bad for this rant. I feel bad for the rant in my 10 worst games. I feel bad for ever talking about this game because I can't imagine I'm doing anyone any favors. Well, I might be doing you a favor if you're trying to pick it up. I'm not the only person who thinks this. Now, what I will say is the fact that if you are interested in this game, do not read the rules in the rulebook. There is a file on Board Game Geek that you can find, that you can power through, and you can get that, and it'll make the game more accessible. I don't know if it'll make the game good or not because I played half a game with incorrect made-up rules, and so I just went for it. But get that file. I wish I had done that first. I should have done that first. I just tried the rulebook here, thinking it can't be that bad. I was wrong. That's the Ratcatcher. It's definitely leaving my collection. I feel bad. I think there's a good game hidden in there somewhere. It's just not one I got a chance to play, which brings us to the next easy one. There's one more easy one here before we start moving into the slightly harder ones, which is My Farm Shop. My Farm Shop from Pegasus Spiel is a game that is fine. None of my any of these games, I mean, honestly, Poetry for Neanderthals is actually pretty fun. I just don't play party games that much. But My Farm Shop is a game which you're rolling dice and building out your tableau. You're building out your farm. Okay, you have a farm shop. You're doing all your stuff. You roll dice. You build a tableau. You grab a card. You put it down. Now, when you roll a 7, you get a slightly better return. You have sunflowers. You can make your fields better in that way. There's a bunch of small modules you can have for the game that'll give you different ways you to interact with the game, or more goals, farmers, different things you can do, starting cards. There's all these things going on in My Farm Shop, and it's totally fine. But it's fine to me in a way that Machi Koro is fine. I think Machi Koro is a totally fine game that does not stimulate my enjoyment buttons as much. I mean, I have fun playing My Farm Shop, don't get me wrong. It's not a bad game by any means, but if I sit there and I play this, I'm like, why am I not playing Valeria Card Kingdoms or Space Base, which are better games? Valeria Card Kingdoms is my favorite, but Space Base is good too. But I don't have that. I just think it's an okay game. The same thoughts and feelings I have when I play Machi Koro. The difference is that my daughter loves Machi Koro, and my daughter didn't, I mean, she thought My Farm Shop was fine. She didn't particularly care for it, though, not in any meaningful way, and so My Farm Shop is gone. It's a game that is going away. I think it's fine. I think if you like Machikoro, this is worth paying attention to. Because again, keep in mind, I don't like Machikoro. I think it's not, that's still the wrong terminology. I don't like Machikoro in comparison to other games. That's what I really mean. So in comparison to other games, I think Machikoro is a fine experience, but one I would rather play the other games. And I think My Farm Shop falls into the exact same category. It's okay, it just doesn't particularly make me compelled to play it. The fact that it's leaving my collection has me not in the slightest bit concerned. I don't care if I ever play it at all. It's fine. It's just fine. Moving on from there, let's go with another one. Let's go with the next easiest. Let's go, See, now we start moving into 4 more titles. 4 more titles that, if I hold up all the fingers, then it's 8 more titles. But now we go into a bunch more titles that are more compelling. These start drifting into a category of games that I have a harder time getting rid of, but I just recognize that I can't play everything that I want to play, and so decisions will be made, and the first decision here will be Azul Summer Pavilion. Azul Summer Pavilion is fine. I feel like these videos should just be called fine games. Azul Summer Pavilion is actually pretty engaging. It has the beautiful pieces that you expect from an Azul experience. It has the fun scoring mechanisms as you grab different tiles, as you draft different tiles in the center, as you load things into the center factory, as you grab stuff, as you earn your negative points, as you earn these bonuses, as you lock different zones together. Azul Summer Pavilion, to me, I haven't played Queen's Garden for context, but I have played Azul, I have played Stained Glass of Sintra, and I have played Summer Pavilion. My preference is Azul, Summer Pavilion, Stained Glass of Sintra. Stained Glass of Sintra, I don't remember, it's been a long time since I played it, but I remember being just completely nonplussed and unimpressed by it in comparison to what Azul does. This one is more compelling than Stained Glass of Sintra, at least to myself. I liked building out your stars or trying to choose how to optimize your points, getting a full circle versus getting all the 4s versus getting all these bonuses. Lots of fun little stuff going on, but to me, I still prefer Azul for one particular reason. To me, the best part of Azul is the screwage involved in playing Azul specifically as a 2-player game, which is the only way I play Azul. I do not consider Azul a 3 or 4-player game. If I want to do that, I'll play Sagrada. If I want a 2-player experience, I will play Azul, and Azul will give me that tenseness as I try to sit there and not prioritize how to score points for myself, but how to ensure that I leave a whole bunch of tiles on the factory floor that you have to take that you can't store. And even though I'm losing 6 points because I could have taken those tiles, you're about to lose 8 points because you have to store those in your bottom row. Azul is a game of screwage, and I found that none of the other Azuls fully leaned into that degree of screwage that the original one did if you play it that way, which is how I play it. Azul Summer Pavilion is enjoyable. I like it. I don't think I'll ever play it over Azul, and if I'm playing a 3 or 4 player game, I will still choose Sagrada as a more engaging puzzle experience at a 3 or 4 player count. And so Azul Summer Pavilion is a good game. I think it's good. I think if you like Azul, especially if you like Stained Glass of Sintra, I think this is a good game worth paying attention to. For me, based on what I'm looking for in my Azul experience, it's fine. It's just fine. It's good. It really is good. You can't have all the games. You got to make decisions. From there, let's move to. I don't know which one's hard. I know which one the hardest is. Let's go ahead and go to Founders of Teotihuacan. Founders of Teotihuacan is a game I just covered on the channel, and it's good. This one's, I'm not even going to say it's fine. This is straight up good. I really enjoyed Founders of Teotihuacan as a great experience that got a little repetitive after multiple plays. Once I dove into this a few times, I found that playing Founders of Teotihuacan, which is a puzzle experience as you try to build out your temples and your pyramids in a way that you can optimize your scoring in 4 different quadrants of the board as you move your architect around and try to score as many points as possible. It's a good game. I really liked it. Also, I played it a bunch of times and then was like, oh, it's the same game every single time, which if you've watched some of my videos in the past, or specifically a video where I said 10 things, 12 things I don't like in games, variability is a big part of that experience for me. In fact, I have a full video on variability as well. But to me, I don't like optimization in my games. I don't like the fact that, okay, great, we've played the game, now it's just about getting better and better and better across 10, 20, 30 plays. I like the experience to constantly be giving me slight adjustments to the puzzle, new goal cards, new roles, new abilities, new map setups. Give me the general puzzle, but change it up enough so that I feel it's different every time I play it. And Founders of Teotihuacan does have a few things that are different, such as it has asymmetric boards, but that doesn't give you a lot of gameplay differences. They feel mostly similar, and once you have 2 or 3 games, you've already seen all that. It does give you bonus tiles that mix up every round, but not significantly enough to really feel like it's a different puzzle. And sure, the order of the reward tiles you're cashing in, the order can matter a bit there, but again, not enough for me to feel it's a different experience. I liked Founders of Teotihuacan. I think it's a fun game, and I think it's a good thinky filler game, and it's a good thinky filler game that I have played enough times that I am fine not playing it again. It's good. It's fun, it's enjoyable, I recommend it, and if you are someone, I would say in particular, because the gameplay itself, like the gameplay, I give this one a 3.5 out of 5, gameplay-wise, I would call it a 4 to 5, but a game is the sum of all its parts, and to me, part of that is my desire to play it again, and that's a factor of variability. So gameplay alone, 4 to 5, but the full package to me is a 3.5 out of 5, one in which I'm more than happy to play it in the future, but I don't feel the need to own it because I'm not going to be compelled enough in comparison to other games because specifically of that lack of variability. If the lack of variability is not a problem for you, if that's not why you dive into games, it might be worth giving this one a gander, or taking a look. I mean, honestly, it's probably worth taking a look no matter what. It's a good game. Just not a great game once you get past that, well, I can phrase that. If you want the variability, not a great game. From there, we move to Paper Dungeons. Paper Dungeons, which is a really fun game. This is a hard one for me to get rid of. Not the hardest, we have one more left. But Paper Dungeons from Alley Cat Games and from Meeple BR. This is a hard one because it falls into the category of a genre of games that... There's a genre of games out there. Not a genre, but you'll see what I mean in a second. In which let's just say it like that. Okay, there are games out there that I like enough that I sit there and say, and I say this in my review often, I kind of need an expansion for the game. It's happened multiple times in multiple games in multiple situations, and whenever it does, the basic conversation is, I like this game, but I need a bit more from it in order to keep it, in order to experience it. Honestly, that could even be true of Founders of Teotihuacan. I just don't know if there would be an expansion or what the expansion would provide. Paper Dungeons, I can actually see a bunch of expansion stuff easily being implemented, and from what I understand, they are working on an expansion. And so multiple times over the years, I have had these games where I'm like, I just need an expansion and I will keep that game. The question on the table, Merchants of the Dark Road is going to be a good example of that. I want to dive into it with an expansion. The question on the table is always, how long do I hold a game on my shelf with the hope that an expansion may or may not come out, with the hope that I will get that expansion for a game that I liked but wasn't like over the hill on, and what will actually happen there? And the answer is that it depends. I mean, practically speaking, I have had expansions save games for me. I've had expansions improve games for me. That has definitely happened. But holding on to a game for a year for when the expansion may or may not come out is a different conversation that hasn't gone as well. And I just don't like holding on to unplayed games for a year, games that I have no real intention of playing. Now, Paper Dungeons is a good game. It's a fun game. It's a good roll and write, and I recommend it easily as it is. But the problem is I have lots of roll and writes that I love more than Paper Dungeons. I have Welcome to, I have Welcome to the Moon, which is fantastic, just got that. I have Cartographer's Heroes, I have Railroad Inc., I have so many amazing, Hadrian's Wall, oh my gosh, don't even get me started, Fleet, Three Sisters, so many games that give me an excellent roll and write experience. My biggest problem with Paper Dungeons, which you may have already picked up on it slightly, is the map. It didn't give me the variable experience I wanted. It gave me a dungeon, and sure, you drew a wall, so it's slightly different every time, but it was never different enough. The general proceduralness of going through the map felt a little bit too similar every single time, a little too procedural in what it did, such that even though other things were different, there's a fun puzzle of how you upgrade your character, of how you get different abilities, of what things you get, how you prioritize your health. There's a fun little game going on in Paper Dungeons, and the variable goals you get, and the equipment you get, and all those things do add to the puzzle in a good way, and they give you a variable experience. But me going through the same dungeon in roughly the same pattern every single time I play gets a little boring. I feel this is a game that would have strongly benefited from, Paper Dungeons Map Pack 1, Paper Dungeons Map Pack 2, Paper Dungeons, something else you could draw, the Portal expansion where you draw portals on the map. Having portals drawn on the map completely can change the entire order, and they are kind of like portals, sort of, but like having totally adjustable portals on the map where you can go from one thing to the next, it would... I like this game. I recommend this game. For myself, ultimately, I am prioritizing and picking other roll and writes in my collection over Paper Dungeons when it comes time to sit down and play a roll and write. And so Paper Dungeons is sadly leaving, which leaves us with one more, not the hardest one, but possibly the best one, if that makes sense. This is not the hardest choice. In fact, Paper Dungeons is probably a harder choice, but Lord of the Rings, the card game, is likely, I think so, likely my favorite game. Oh, Black Rose Wars is very good. Likely my favorite game. If you exclude Black Rose Wars, which is technically not leaving, I'm cheating that one. But Lord of the Rings, the card game, is likely my favorite game on this table. It's a fantastic LCG experience that really gives you a fun degree of building out your deck, of utilizing your characters, of journeying through Middle Earth as you try to go on quests and ultimately overwhelm the objectives before the threat overwhelms you. And you have to try to build out your decks, use your heroes, customize what spells, what allies, what things you're going to be using in the game as you try to figure out how to win. I think it's like events, not spells or instants, whatever they are. But anyways, it's fun. It's good. It gives me all the LCG goodness that I get from Marvel Champions, except, and this is the problem, it's not Marvel Champions, and I don't know if I know that I do not have room in my life for 2 LCGs. This is why I got rid of Arkham Horror the card game, another fantastic LCG, one that many people love more than Marvel Champions, and I respect that. For me, I prefer Marvel Champions. Maybe I'm a sucker for the Marvel IP. Maybe it's the fact that Marvel is more of a one-shot, and I kind of prefer the one-shot because campaign games I always want to play, and then I don't play, and I know that stuff, whatever it is. I like Marvel Champions a lot. I like Lord of the Rings a lot. I like Arkham Horror, the card game, a lot. The order, in case you're wondering, is Marvel Champions, Arkham Horror, Lord of the Rings. But they're all fantastic. I only have room for one of these in my life, and that one is Marvel Champions. So despite the fact that the Lord of the Rings, the card game, is my favorite game, possibly excluding Black Rose Wars, on this table at the moment, it is one that is an easier choice than several of them, just because I know that I can't do this halfway. I don't do anything halfway, unfortunately, and that's a problem. I keep getting all the expansion content from Marvel Champions, even though I am like, I don't know, 10 packs behind in terms of what I've opened and engaged with. I'm just so far behind, but I'm like, oh no, I need the newest stuff, because what if it goes out of print later and it's hard to get your hands on, and that really happens with these LCG games, and so I keep getting all the packs, and I would absolutely do the same thing for the Lord of the Rings, the card game. I would probably start anew. I would give myself that mental separation of not starting with the old stuff, but getting the new things. They just released Cycle 1, I believe, of the new reprints and whatnot of this game, and I would get it all if I were going to play it all. That's what I did with Arkham Horror, the card game. And I realized I couldn't be collecting 2 sets of an LCG when I wasn't playing even one of them enough to justify it. And that holds true for Lord of the Rings, the card game. I would get back Arkham Horror, the card game, before I dove into this. Maybe one day, but there's always going to be more games, so maybe not. Maybe not. And those are the games. These are the games leaving the collection. It is unfortunate as always, but that's just life. You have to play the games that you want to play the most, and the rest have to cycle out. And as you know, if you follow the channel, I get a bunch of games, which means I have to get rid of a bunch of games to keep things in equilibrium. To quote Thanos, all things. I don't want to snap away my board games. That would be bad. I'd rather sell or trade them. Speaking of which, if you want to know what I do as far as selling or trading my games, I do try to include a link down below to a video where I show you how I sell a game and the process I generally go through. Granted, I've been busy, so I have like half a calyx full of games that I really need to list. I'll get to it eventually. In any case, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Lots of great games here. Lots of good games here. Some games I'm sad to see go. Other games, just you gotta do what you gotta do. And until next time, have a good one.